should say the Conservative candidate has come out and said that apology is not sufficient, and that previous to this, he was speaking with the RCMP about his safety. So I'm just wondering why you feel comfortable continuing with a candidate that was parroting Chinese Communist Party talking points to try and attack a political candidate.
Look, this is a person of integrity who served this community, his community, as a senior police officer for, as I said, more than a quarter century. He's made a terrible lapse in judgment. He's made an apology for that. It's also an individual who has family in Hong Kong. He's under no illusions about the situation there, the situation in broader China. He's made those apologies. He's made them directly to the individual concerned. He's made them directly to me. He has my confidence. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Carney, Rafaluji Canyon, CBC News. It's not just opposition parties calling for Mr. Chang's resignation, it's also at least 13 civil society groups. What message are you sending to Canadians who are worried about pressure from China when you allow him to stay on? And how can you credibly criticize Pierre Poilievre for his lack of security clearance when Mr. Chang is considered a worthy candidate?
Well, the first thing, I can very credibly criticize the Leader of the Opposition for being at 930 days running and not having a security clearance. I will say as well, in the course of my responsibilities, current responsibility, I didn't do that, that wasn't me. I did manage to cut the piece of wood second time running. Although I was under expert supervision. No, getting back to these are serious matters, so I appreciate the question. But in the course of my responsibility as Prime Minister, just yesterday, I received an additional briefing on foreign interference and potential matters related to that. Of course, I can't share any details of that, but it just underscored once again, I take my responsibility seriously, but the extent to which Leader of the Opposition does not and hasn't for more than 3 years. In terms of, but to go back to the specifics of your question, this situation. Look, I deeply offended by those comments. As I said, they're a terrible lapse of judgment. I view this as a teachable moment. It underscores the respect with which we treat human rights in this country, the differences between Canadian society and other countries. This, after all, though, I will go back to the character of the individual who made a lapse judgment. This is someone who has served our community, has been on the front line of policing for almost 3 decades, and has been standing up for those rights and has that track record for it. He's made his apology. He made it to the public. He made it to the individual concerned. He made it directly to me, and he's going to continue with his candidacy. Thank you.
I noticed multiple GTA area candidates behind you. If you're still standing behind Mr. Chang, why isn't he standing behind you today?
He has other responsibilities in his riding. We have multiple, but not every candidate, I know Yvonne Baker's off doing different things. People are doing things, they're out talking to Canadians. I'm honored that these candidates have found the time. I'm honored that Gregor Robertson, and let me just say a word about Gregor Robertson for a second. This is an individual who obviously has served his city. He understands these issues around housing as well as anybody in the country. And he understands as well, along with the Minister of Housing, who's snuck back there, yes, Mr. Erskine Smith, how the solution has to be an integrated solution. It's not just about we are changing a number of regulations, we are changing things on the tax side, but we have to create new entities. And we have to build all the way through so that we can build a sustainable, competitive housing market in this country.
Judy Chin, CTV News. Mr. Carney, I'd like to press you a little bit more on Paul Chang. He lives in a riding that is 70% diverse, people of color. Half of that are people of Chinese ethnic origin, and of that population, about 20% are from mainland China. The question that people from Hong Kong have asked me to ask is whether or not you are putting appeal to those voters who may support the policies of China ahead of the democratic rights and safety of dissidents who have called Canada home, and mainly Hong Kong democracy activists who now live in Mr. Chang's riding?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Stand foursquare for rights, foursquare for our position, our very strong position vis-a-vis China, respect for Canadian citizens, all rights of Canadian citizens, irrespective of whether they hold dual citizenship or not, to be absolutely clear. And Mr. Chang has long history of service to that community, history of protecting those rights. Mr. Chang is well aware of these issues, including having family in Hong Kong.
How can he be an effective representative for them when they no longer trust him after he said this? The question, as you know, Mr. Carney, you know that Canada has executed 4 Canadians this year.
China.
You know that there are human rights activists in China in detention right now. How can Mr. Chang, how can your party keep him as a candidate knowing this context?
Mr. Chang has apologized for his comments. It's a lapse of judgment. He apologized he's apologized for his comments. He's apologized directly to me. He's apologized directly to the individual. He has a long record of service. He's going to continue his candidacy.